This is Nick's show. We're doing more of our Posthomerica artwork here. We're currently on the Philoctetes chapter, and we recently did something pretty big. We changed the color of the cave, and now we're going to go back in and kind of make that feel correct. So essentially we're going to do proper line work for this. Let's actually turn on the bones for it too. So originally the cave was, if we turn this off, you can see it was gold along with the characters, but we're switching it, inverting the colors. Is this an empty layer? Yeah. Let's just delete that. I'm suspicious of using layers that I just had lying around that were empty, just in case there's something on them. Okay, now we're gonna put a little, actually, before we put an edge on this, let's do it without an edge, and we'll see if it works. Alright, so we're just going to go through and fill this with yellow. And eventually this yellow is actually going to change too. This obviously is not going to be the final color, because we're going to put some textures on it and possibly even change it entirely. But we want to have some color in there, because then we can use that as a mask for whatever the real color is, just like we did with the cave walls, which were originally yellow. And because we had any color for the cave walls, we could then turn that into a mask and use it to, change it. So then we changed it to black. But what's nice is that you can see it still keeps all the texture of our original drawing of that color. So it's not like we're just kind of destroying the work that we did. It's probably time for a bit of a larger brush. Good. I might even want to redo the line work on these cave walls to make it a little bit thinner, but we'll see what we want to do with that later. Okay, so that's what we got. Now let's turn on the background. And then the question is, do we like it better with, let's put another layer in. Do we like it better like this or like this? We're going to do a rough version of this. No, I like this better. So let's create another layer outside of this stack or whatever it's called. We're going to turn this off, or we can't turn it off, we have to just turn it transparent. We're going to take our brush with the usual size. It still was probably the usual size when we made that, but we just favored thicker lines, which we do on some of ours with like background elements. But I think this is going to work better with thin lines. We don't really need to worry about the spots where it touches outside the outside of the cave. Let's make this even straighter. There you go. This also gives us a chance to reckon the cave walls to the where the border is, rather than what we had before was like it was going to the top of the screen, which now is covered by the border, so some of these triangles don't pay off anymore. That isn't really the biggest issue, but it's a nice to have, a good excuse for us to do this. Great. Let's just get a little preview. If we just look at this part, we'll be able to see what it looks like without this. So the edges are really scratchy, but do we like this better than what we originally had, which is this? Yeah, I definitely like it better. The only thing is that it looks a little lumpy, so let's take a quick look at it by itself again. It might only look lumpy because of the edges. I think that is what it is. So that's going to be its own separate thing that we do at the end. Let's keep going. This kind of stuff is fun because there's not really any thinking involved. You're just touching the lines together and matching what you already did. So it's kind of a nice break from, you know, the stuff we've been doing. We're going to create another triangle here just so it... I basically want this to be created only by triangles. Everything in this cave wall is a triangle that's touching. So there should only ever be 3 sides to every shape that exists in it. This is not really a Greek design. I just think it's cool. And we're taking a little artistic license with it, I guess. Specifically, sort of setting a scene like this where something takes place in a defined space that has like a background, that's what's not Greek about it, as much as the triangular design, because they don't really draw backgrounds in Greek art. They just, if something is interior, there will be like a floating object that kind of, like one little like pot that's sitting in midair, and that like just basically is supposed to represent, oh, they're in a house because that pot is hanging on the wall, but you won't see anything else except for that one little pot sitting in the picture. It's a pretty fascinating way to do interiors, and so we are taking a little bit of liberty. Like there's certain pictures where like, the one I'm basing this one off of is where, if the scene from the Odyssey where Diomedes and Odysseus go, and I think the guy's name is Dolon, they basically sneak up on this Trojan ally in the forest and extract some information from him in the Iliad. And this picture is them sneaking up on him, and you can see the trees kind of like intercutting through the picture. And so I figured, you know, that one does have a pretty extraordinary background element compared to most Greek art. So I'm going to extrapolate that and make an even bigger background element for mine. This is another instance where this probably touched the edge, but then we moved the picture, so it's like, now it's a, I don't know what kind of shape you call that, a trapezoid or something. It has 4 sides. We don't want that, so we're gonna create triangles out of it. And let's make these bigger, actually. We want to manage the kind of like shape complexity in such a way that it draws the eye as well. So like the bigger shapes are going to be in spots where we don't really want them to look, like in the corners. But then where it gets closer to the characters, the shapes get a little bit more complex. Hopefully that does what we're trying to do, you know, like kind of draws the eye towards the characters. This works as a triangle without that extra line there. It's another instance where the edges have been redefined, so we have to also redefine what the triangles look like. So it kind of gives this idea of Philoctetes being stranded in like a crystal cavern, like it's full of like crystalline structures. And there's no evidence of that in the story at all, but I think it's just cool. A cool little detail to create ourselves. Of course, when you're illustrating, number one, you don't really have to stick to the source material, and many illustrators don't. And number two, a lot of it's up to interpretation, especially in these Greek poems. So like in a lot of these pictures, we're creating story elements ourselves that aren't really, you know, they're inspired by aspects of the story, and we're kind of like extrapolating it further. Because there's no evidence of whether the thing we're showing happened one way or the other. So it's the type of thing where it's like, oh, well, it could have been a crystal-looking cave that Philoctetes was in, but they just don't say, you know, in the story. And there's also the element of just like, who cares type thing, you know? It's like, it's our vision for what this would look like. Okay, so this, we need to add a new triangle in here. Alright. Oh, he did a little textured thing for his foot, huh? Looks pretty good. I don't know what I was thinking here. We're gonna redesign this. See, the fact that we cropped the bottom a lot means that we're getting a lot of shapes that don't pay off anymore, so we gotta kind of like redo this. Okay, so that's the whole thing. Let's get rid of this for now. Now we want to turn off the background for a minute and redraw the borders of the cave wall. Yeah, so let's actually turn off the... Well, this could be useful just to see where it's supposed to go. Okay. Let's make this on another layer just in case. And of course, it doesn't really matter what straggling pieces are outside of the yellow, because all the black is just going to be merged with the black of the background. But there could be issues when we put the texturing on because of that, so we're gonna work on that afterwards. On the computer, we'd be able to just essentially just plot two lines and have a line show up exactly, with no question of it resolving at the spot we want it to. But we're not on the computer, so... Oh, this one already is a line because of the edge. That is too. The nice thing about these, non-flat ground planes is that you can really just make up for a lot of the irregularities of where your characters are sitting or standing. Like, we can draw the ground plane to match where their feet are. And we don't have to make sure that they're standing exactly straight or whatever, because maybe they're walking uphill or maybe they're walking downhill. It's all up to us. When they're standing on a straight plane, then we have to, actually pay attention to that. Oh, this isn't a triangle here, so we're gonna fix that. Let's have that go straight into the corner. Good. Now, let's go back into the other layer, and we're gonna delete any sections. Actually, let's merge these two. So we want to be able to delete whatever we need to at the same time. We're not really going to see anything that's outside of the edge because it's black on black. But we're doing it just to be safe in case there's some kind of problem with the texture. Let's do a quick save as well. I don't think the document's getting that big yet. 55 megs, okay. Yeah, it's not until we put the textures in that it gets really big. And that's why we do the textures last. Well, for many reasons, but that being a very good reason to do them last. Because we don't really want to have to make creative decisions regarding the character designs or the composition or anything once the textures are in, because everything gets a lot slower. See, that one does matter because that goes over his foot. We are going to see that edge. Good. I'm glad we took another crack at this design because it definitely was bothering me. Good. Now we're just going to clean up the fill layer. Why did it not select the fill layer? This is a two-part job because first we gotta add, then we gotta subtract. Okay. Looks like that needs to be fixed as well, so let's just do that real quick. The rock is part of Philoctetes' layer, and it was kind of it took me a while to decide if I wanted that to also look like the crystal pattern, but it didn't really read. Oops. when I did that, so I just made it its own, normal looking rock. Alright, looks like everything's good. Now we want to erase the parts that encroach outside of the thing. After that, I think we're done with design. I think after that we can do the texture. And this is going to be learning experience for us because how we do this one might dictate changes on some of the other red figure pictures that we've done. Because since doing the red figure ones near the beginning, we've kind of come up with a more interesting way to texture our stuff. Good. Now let's look at it with the actual background turned on. Great, okay. Let's just take a look at the line art. Is there anything we want to change? Oh, look at that. The black piece came back in. Everything looks pretty good. I like Diomedes' armor. Diomedes and Odysseus are pretty heavily inspired, like lifted almost from the picture that I'm taking inspiration from, but I added costume elements to both of them to differentiate them. Also, I think this was Odysseus in the original piece, but I decided this one was in mine because I think he should look goofier than Diomedes. And then I gave Diomedes a bunch of armor. Good. Okay, I think we're ready to do stuff. So now we jump into, first of all, with the finished line art, we're going to duplicate this. And then we'll be able to actually compare sizes of the document once this has everything in. So let's put VO2 away. What happened? Did it open something? We might be in trouble. I don't know what's going on. It's creating a preview. Okay, it opened this for some reason. I don't know why this is like vibrating. So 54 is what the thing says. Now we're going to go through and start texturing. First, we will texture the background. So at this point, we can destroy everything that's not showing up in the final picture. So we're going to merge all the background elements into one. And I would like to try something different on this one. No, that doesn't work. So maybe let's put this, and then we will we're going to bring this back in. There needs to be a layer underneath, which would be what? Okay, maybe it's this. Maybe it's not that. Maybe there's no mask on the background layer. And on top of it, we're putting stuff. Okay, I like that. So we're very slowly adding little details in here. And let's make our next layer on top of this, and it's going to be a little bit brighter, just a little bit. And what's nice about this is that I think we can take the texture, because it's additive and it's not a matte, or at least it's not a matte that's connected to the background layer, we can use it, I think, on the other black elements of the picture. So we'll see about that. Okay, it looks good. Now another thing that happens in these kind of pictures is like a bleeding effect of the, let's make it like a brownish, it's like a bleeding of the color that's used for the characters, and we don't really have that color yet, but we're gonna just wing it. it's almost like a glow at some points around them. Yeah, sort of like that. And it also kind of just appears around the picture too, which I think we'll add at a different time. Oh, this is so opaque here that it won't even... Yeah, we can see that it's... Yeah, it's like, you can see on the preview that it's like almost black in this spot. Okay, now we're gonna try this for just general parts of the picture, I guess. And these are just little nice to have details because there's not really a lot of action going on with red figure stuff in the black background sections. They add a little bit of, attention to these void areas. Yeah. See, that's a little too much, I think. we shouldn't forget that the borders would also be leaking like that, so we should have a little bit of this coming off the borders as well. Great. All right, it's looking good. Very subtle. We don't really want anything too much. Good. Now we're going to delete everything we don't need. And let's remove that group. Delete this. Extract the group. And certain stuff here is going to be a little rough. Yeah, you can see like that. So what we have to do is select the pixels of Diomedes' thing and delete it out of Odysseus's layer. And now it looks like it's above it again, even though it's not. Philoctetes has a lot of layers going on. Okay. We can delete this. And we just want to take these one by one. Now if we were to move this here, yeah, there's a little bit that gets messed up. So we're going to take this, same thing, we're going to delete this out of the bow and arrow. Then we're going to put Philoctetes in here, and that's going to screw some stuff up. Yep. And that means we want to take this and delete Philoctetes layer from it. The selection, good. And then this can live on its own, actually. That doesn't need to change. Now we can merge all of his line art. his, whatever you call this layer, fill layer. Great. And we're gonna take this out. This shouldn't interfere because they're not touching each other at all. Okay, so now we just have the background, the borders, and that, so that's good. Borders, I think we're gonna keep separated. What do we got here? What is this? Oh, that's the corners. This is the border edges? Oh, no, this is the actual fill layer of the border, but some of this is also the cave wall, so it kind of merges. This is what? The two sides and their fills. Okay, so that needs some work, but we'll do that later. First, we're going to work on the characters. We can merge the three characters now. We can merge their fills. Now I want to see what if you look really close, you can see that this outline does not match the background anymore because we put a texture on the background. So what I want to do is, now that we kind of are settled on the background, hopefully we won't change it, because we're going to take this background. Yeah, we can't do it the other way. See, the really interesting thing would be if we did this subtractively, where we basically cut There's no reason we can't do that, actually. Let's take this, delete. It seems like a bad idea to me. Let's duplicate this then, and we'll just keep a backup of it, and we'll duplicate this too. And this is just going to be our thing of turn this on, put it in a thing, turn it off. And in here is just a replica of exactly what we have now. Obviously, we also have the reference of that in our other two versions. We're on version 3 now, so it's not like we're losing stuff. But basically what we're going to do, we're going to take everything that was the line art, we're going to delete that from the fill. And now watch this, I'm going to turn off the line art. And now the fill layer only exists where the line art is not. And that means that all the outlines automatically have the exact same texture as the background. That's exactly what I wanted. This is great. So we don't have to do any extra work, essentially, there, but we do want to fix up some things like this where the fill goes outside. I think that looks good. Okay, so now that's great. This we can delete. Now the only difference, let's just try an alternate version. So this would be like, this is before we deleted, yeah. Okay, let's try an alternate version. For example, we'll just do this part. We'll do it with our method that we've been doing. Because it could give it an interesting texture. We're going to go for the other thing, for this, which now just uses the negative space as the outlines. Then we're going to do the texture on the fill layer. Something's going on with this now. Oh, I see why. We need to use the negative space from this in order to... We could just put a black mask in this spot. Now it works. So we don't need to make this look good, this mask, because we're going to be putting textures on top. But we want to make it opaque enough that the textures will show up properly. Okay. Good. Now we're going to go in in a few different ways in order to add details to this. Good, so that's where we're going to leave it for this one. Thanks for joining, ladies and gents. The channel's called The Voice of Nick. If you want to see more, don't forget to hit the follow button, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.